average, fared better than the rest of the country. Unemployment was lower than the rest of the country, and we initially had a much faster recovery. But that recovery has stalled in some ways, and the city's 8.3% unemployment rate is higher than both the state and the country as a whole. For men and women of color, the situation's even worse. What initiatives would you take in the city council to combat unemployment in the city? And we're going to start with Reverend Tiller.
Start with me? Yeah, okay. Well, I think, for example, in Bedford-Stuyvesant and communities like Bedford-Stuyvesant, we simply have a problem where we don't have enough small business. I talk to young men all the time, and I say to them, just survey your community. They tell me, you know, Rev, I've got a felony. I've got a record. And then I'm honest with them. It's going to be very difficult for you to find gainful employment. They understand this. But what we have to do is take the next leap. We need a city council person that will provide and use the funds that are available for technical training to help small business people. But we also have to trumpet a gospel of entrepreneurship. I say to these young men all the time, survey your community. Look at what services are needed, what goods are not provided. That's the answer to your employment problem. Many of our young men have shown brilliance in putting together criminal enterprises. With that same brilliance, we could put together the kinds of resources, goods, and services in our community that would not only provide for a better quality of life, increase the number of amenities that we have in the community, but it would also solve the employment problem. Yes, we've got to try to attract as much investment as we can. We've got to try to make and offer incentives to companies that will come here and employ people, because let's be honest, as long as there's chronic unemployment, it makes it very difficult to reduce crime. But I believe, since small business is the #1 employer of the United States, in a community like ours, where you have great needs, you have people with great skills, great ability, we just have to create an environment where there is more entrepreneurship, more small businesses, and then we have to support those businesses and then keep the dollar circulating within the community, and that will go a long way to help ameliorate some of these problems. As a city council person, I will provide forums, I will provide training, I will bring information and inspiration into this community so that we will see an increase in businesses and provide the technical assistance that they survive and the impetus and the inspiration for the community to support those businesses once they have been established.
Thank you, Reverend Tiller. Mr. Cornegy.
So in 2012, I was a delegate to President Obama, and I had an opportunity to look very closely at his small business plan, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the idea that no longer were we going to be a country that relied on big business to provide employment, and that it would be small business and entrepreneurship development that would provide those things. So I believe in that wholeheartedly. And as such, I have begun, not when I get to City Council, but already to create a small business incubator that will provide technical assistance as well as access to capital to grow capacity within our small businesses, allowing them the opportunity to hire. Already we have 2 very good examples in our community of businesses that are doing that and have a mandate for hiring within a 2 to 3 mile radius. So I'm proud to say that Noah Katz over at Foodtown has a mandate of 80% employment within a 2 to 3 mile radius, which is our people. Peaches and the Peaches franchise, which employ hundreds. So between Foodtown and Peaches franchise, there are hundreds of people who are employed and they have already agreed to a mandate to 80 and above % of their employees coming from a 2 to 3 mile radius. If we can grow capacity in our small businesses through the small business incubator to have all businesses meet that mandate, we'll begin to decrease unemployment in our area and set a model not only for Central Brooklyn, but I believe for the city and for the rest of the country. So it's my plan. With small businesses, I'm proud. You know, people have mentioned relationships and those kind of things, but I'm proud to be supported by several small businesses, 40 or 50 small businesses, and a small business coalition because of my forward thinking in building capacity within small businesses to meet the needs not only of the community, to make sure that there's retail diversity, and just to ensure Because I do believe what the president says, that we will not recover from this economy through big business, but through small business. So we've already begun the process of putting together a small business incubator that's going to provide access to capital as well as access to technical assistance that will ultimately mitigate and de-escalate the unemployment rate for Bedford-Stuyvesant, Crown Heights, and Central Brooklyn.
Mr. Kennedy, you guys could just hold off to the end. Thank you. Mr. Foy?
So we have, under this current administration, seen an attack on the local economies and the fabric of our local economies. Over-regulation of small businesses, over-fining and over-assessment of fees have really choked the life out of many of our businesses that have been the staple of our community for decades. And so what we need to do is remove the perverse incentive that the city has to use overregulation to close budget gaps. The Bloomberg administration views businesses and individuals as a means by which to generate revenues to close budget gaps that are caused by subsidizing large corporations. So the first thing I would do is remove many of these large corporate subsidies that we give away to Fortune 500 companies that are not investing in our communities, that are not generating and creating jobs, and give that to small businesses. I'd like to create a community development fund that is controlled on the community level by a community apparatus, whether it be the community board or another apparatus that's established, that would take those fees and those fines that are generated out of our community, and instead of sending them to City Hall so that they can become subsidies for large corporations, would turn those fees and those fines immediately back to the community that could then be used to provide microloans for small businesses. There is a capital gap, and no matter how good your business has been run, there are some businesses that are not able to get access to capital so that they can grow, so that they can sustain themselves. So we need to empower our local communities to be able to identify and support those businesses that have proven that they can help mitigate against things like unemployment. You know, we have been chronically unemployed in this community for a long time. You know, the black male unemployment rate hovers around 51%. So while we're talking about the 8% citywide average, we're really not talking about the crisis that we are feeling in our community when we have half of our young men who are not employed but not employable as well. So in order to deal with employment, we also have to deal with employability. We have to train, educate, and prepare our young men to take jobs that will get them off the street. We need to return vocational training to many of our institutions. We need to take out of our criminal justice system many of the triggers that prevent people from employing formerly incarcerated young men, giving them an opportunity to return to society as full citizens. And these are many of the things that we can do to mitigate against the 51% unemployment rate that we experience among black men.
Thank you, Mr. Foy. Mr. Sweeney?
Okay. To set the record straight on the New York City Housing Section 3 program that these gentlemen mentioned to you, I'm the only candidate up here that have hired those individuals. That program, so for the record, is not a contractual program. It is a program when a vendor wins a NYCHA contract, he is required by government law to hire an individual that lives in the New York City housing residence. So to set the record straight, that's how that program works. Now, as far as the unemployment in our district, once I become the council person, the first area that I'm going to rectify and fix is our Community Board 3 Economic Development Division. They're not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not helping. We have too many buildings, contracts, construction, you name it going on in this district. They do not hire black. I don't care what anybody says. I don't want to hear about anything new. or anything, another organization, this and that.